From the fighting grounds of Georgia to the bright lights of the UFC octagon, some stories are written in blood, sweat, and pure determination. This is the story of a young man who refused to accept defeat, who turned every opponent into a stepping stone, and who carried the hopes of two entire nations on his shoulders. At just 18 years old, Ilia Topuria stepped into his first professional fight with nothing but raw talent and an unshakable belief in himself. What followed was not just a winning streak, it was a masterclass in evolution, from submission specialist to knockout artist, from unknown prospect to world champion, and now to something even rarer, a two-division UFC champion. 17 fights, 17 victories, 0 defeats. This is the complete breakdown of every single battle that forged El Matador, the man who would eventually shock the world by doing what many thought impossible. Join us as we dissect every takedown, every submission, every knockout that built the legend. This is the untold story of how Ilia Topuria became not just the first Georgian to capture UFC gold, but the first to conquer two divisions. The path to greatness is never easy, but some are destined to rewrite history entirely. Saturday, April 4th, 2015. At 18 years old, Ilia Topuria takes his first professional mixed martial arts bout against 25-year-old Francisco Martinez, a professional fighter with a record of 3 wins and 5 losses. The fight started with a short feeling-out process before Ilia ducked under a hook from Martinez and successfully shot for a double-leg takedown. Topuria immediately goes to work showing superior grappling and ground control, and despite Martinez repeatedly trying to create space and escape, Ilia's top control proved to be too advanced as he passed from side control into a mounted crucifix before catching Martinez in an inverted triangle not long after, forcing Martinez to tap, earning his first professional victory just 1 minute and 30 seconds into the very first round. Saturday, May 9, 2015. Just a month removed from his professional debut, Ilia Topuria faced his second opponent in featherweight Khalil Martin El Chalibi. As the round began, El Chalibi came out looking to strike, feinting a jab, followed by a powerful leg kick. Ilia easily evades and shoots for a double-leg takedown. Despite Khalil's multiple attempts to illegally hold on to the cage, Topuria successfully pulls him away and quickly passes to half guard before taking Khalil's back. Ilia flattened him out and landed some shots before sinking in the rear naked choke, stopping El Chalibi just 1 minute into the very first round and moving to 2-0 in his professional career. Saturday, May 7th, 2016. Ilia's next opponent was Daniel Vasquez, a 6-1 amateur fighter who was making his professional debut. Ilia's fan base was quickly increasing and he now found himself in his first main event fight. Almost a year since his last fight, it was clear Topuria had been working on his striking, and he seemed comfortable exchanging with Vasquez at the beginning of the round. As the exchanges begin to get a little wild, Topuria shoots and takes Daniel down, working his way into side control, and then mount. We find Ilia in a familiar position, as he forces Vasquez to tap out to a rear naked choke, just 1 minute and 50 seconds into the first round. Saturday, November 5th, 2016. Ilia Topuria's fourth fight came against 24-year-old Colombian John Guarin for the vacant MFE Featherweight Championship. Despite still only being 19 years of age and 5 years younger than his opponent, Ilia had more fight experience than Guarin. In round 1, both fighters showed some great grappling, with both Topuria and Guarin having multiple submission attempts. However, it was round 2 where Ilia began to take over, finishing his opponent via guillotine choke, 2 minutes and 50 seconds into the round, taking his professional record to 4-0. Saturday, April 28th, 2018. A little over a year since his last appearance, Topuria took his first international fight against Mika Hämäläinen in Helsinki, Finland. Now 4-0 and fighting at bantamweight for the first time in his career, Topuria found himself against a more experienced opponent with a record of 8 wins with just 1 defeat. Both men started the round, looking to control the distance using their jab. However, both Ilia's reach and superior boxing started to gain him the advantage. After some good exchanges, Topuria started to land the cleaner shots, which forced Mika to shoot for the takedown. Ilia easily defended and took the neck of Hämäläinen and finished him with a mounted guillotine just 3.5 minutes into the fight, moving to 5-0. Saturday, June 16, 2018. Still undefeated, Ilia Topuria's next bout was to be contested for the 135-pound bantamweight title. Yet promotional newcomer Topuria lost the right to fight for the title when he came in nearly 5 pounds over championship weight at 139.5 pounds. Early in the opening round, Topuria took Bouland's back as he looked to escape from the bottom after giving up a takedown. After a scramble, Topuria latched onto an anaconda choke and squeezed until Bouland was rendered unconscious. Just 1 month prior to his victory against Bouland, Ilia created history outside of the cage. Becoming the first Georgian ever to become a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, he finished out the year 6-0. Saturday, September 7th, 2019, Bogota, Colombia. 22-year-old Ilia Topuria takes his first fight outside of Europe against Luis Gomez, a fighter 15 years his senior. Now on a 6-fight winning streak with 5 finishes coming in the first round, Topuria now faced his most experienced opponent, who had amassed a record of 26 wins and just 6 losses. At the beginning of round 1, Ilia looked to have the better striking and used it to set up a perfect takedown. Topuria quickly passed from half guard to mount before throwing elbows and heavy punches from the top. Gomez had no answer and was forced to tap to a mounted triangle just 1 minute and 10 seconds in the first round. Ilia now moves to 7-0. The finish also earned him his first Performance of the Night award. Saturday, November 15th, 2019. 2 months later, Topuria returned at Brave CF 29 against Stephen Concalves, a 32-year-old South African with a professional record of 6 wins and only 1 loss. Both fighters opened the round looking to strike and both landed some good shots early, with Concalves dropping Ilia with a head kick, forcing him to take Concalves to the ground. Topuria managed to sink in a deep anaconda choke, but his opponent somehow escaped. When both fighters were back on their feet, Ilia backed up Concalves before landing a devastating right hand, knocking him out cold. This was Topuria's 8th win in a row, finishing all 8 of his opponents and 7 of those finishes coming in the very first round. Saturday, October 10th, 2020. Yas Island, Abu Dhabi. When UFC featherweight Youssef Zalal's opponent became injured just 11 days before his scheduled fight, the UFC offered the short notice bout to Ilia Topuria, who had impressed with his 8-fight undefeated winning streak. The first round saw both fighters exchanging strikes, with Topuria pushing forward and dictating the pace of the fight. However, Zalal was able to land some clean shots and showcased his impressive movement and footwork. In the second round, Topuria was able to take Zalal down and maintain top control for a significant amount of time. He landed some ground and pound, but Zalal was able to get back to his feet. The third round saw Topuria score another takedown, controlling Zalal on the ground. Zalal was able to get back to his feet and land some strikes, but it wasn't enough to sway the judges in his favor. In the end, Topuria was awarded a unanimous decision victory, with all 3 judges scoring the fight 29-28 in his favor. Saturday, December 5th, 2020, Las Vegas. Just 2 months after his first UFC victory, Ilia Topuria was to be offered yet another short notice bout, this time against American Damon Jackson. A 4-fight UFC veteran with a professional record of 18 wins, 3 losses, and 1 draw. Ilia came into the fight as a slight favorite and was looking to extend his unbeaten streak to 10-0. As the first round began, both fighters came out looking to strike, although it was soon apparent that Topuria's boxing was a lot cleaner than Jackson's. Ilia began to land vicious combinations to the body and head of his opponent, and it wasn't long before he got the finish, knocking Jackson out just 2 minutes and 40 seconds into the fight. It was a fight which showcased significant statistics, with Topuria landing 31 of 63 significant strikes on Jackson, making this his 8th first-round finish in 10 fights. Saturday, July 10th, 2021, Las Vegas, Nevada. Coming fresh off his finish of Damon Jackson, 24-year-old Ilia Topuria was set to face his toughest opponent to date, the UFC's Ryan Hall, a former Ultimate Fighter winner and decorated submission expert who excelled in leg and ankle submissions. Despite Ilia's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, he was well aware that he was by far the better striker of the two, and despite attempts from Hall to drag Topuria down to the ground, he managed to keep the fight on the feet. Late, towards the end of the first round, Hall threw a spinning kick, which barely glanced Topuria, and led to Hall being off balance, falling to the canvas. Ilia wasted no time in attacking Hall and landed some vicious right hands, knocking Ryan Hall out cold. With many fighters reluctant to take the fight against Hall, this win for Ilia put the rest of the featherweight division on notice. Saturday, March 19th, 2022. London, England. Now boasting an 11-fight winning streak with 9 first-round finishes, Ilia Topuria was set to make his first appearance on a UFC main card, this time at lightweight. His opponent was England's Jai Herbert, a fantastic striker who had finished 10 out of the 11 fighters he'd beaten. With Herbert being 6 inches taller than Topuria and having an 8-inch reach advantage, he had the potential to cause problems, which he did, knocking Topuria down with a head kick in round 1 whilst cutting him. Ilia was visibly hurt, so implemented his grappling in order to recover. When the fighters got back to their feet, Jai continued to pressure, landing more shots at the end of the round. At the beginning of round 2, Topuria looked to have fully recovered and was using his head movement well to slip Jai's punches and close the distance. Just 1 minute into the round, Ilia unleashed a combination which knocked Herbert out cold, earning him a $50,000 knockout of the night bonus, and now moving to 12-0 with 11 finishes. Ilia Topuria was now establishing himself as a very well-rounded fighter. Known for his submission victories earlier in his career, he was now finishing guys with his ever-evolving striking. Saturday, December 10th, 2022. Ilia Topuria's 13th career fight was against featherweight Bryce Mitchell, who was on a 6-fight winning streak and ranked 9th in the featherweight division. Topuria, ranked 14th and still undefeated, was riding a 12-fight winning streak and was hoping an emphatic win would push him into the top 10. In round 1, Topuria was in full control early on, stuffing Bryce's takedown attempts and landing some heavy strikes. Mitchell managed a takedown midway through the round, but Topuria soon got back to his feet and continued the onslaught before giving up a takedown at the end of the round. In round 2, Ilia looked to press Mitchell and dropped him with a nice combination. Topuria followed Bryce to the ground, which allowed him to recover from the knockdown. Later in the round, Topuria began to unload and ragdolled Mitchell to the ground before sinking in an arm triangle, forcing Bryce to tap to the choke. Topuria's incredible display earned him another $50,000 Performance of the Night award. Saturday, June 24th, 2023. Jacksonville, Florida. Ilia Topuria was now ranked 9th in the featherweight division and undefeated in 13 professional fights. He was scheduled as the main event for the first time in his UFC career against 5th-ranked Josh Emmett. Emmett was a dangerous striker with serious one-punch knockout power. The bout was to be a title eliminator fight, with the winner set to face featherweight world champion Alexander Volkanovski. Round 1 started with both fighters trying to gauge the distance, with Ilia pressing forward and Emmett looking to counter. Despite Emmett throwing slightly more shots, Topuria was the more accurate striker. The second round was more of the same, and Ilia dropped Josh with 1 minute left in the round. In the third round, Emmett continued to fire back, but the connections didn't carry as much power, with Topuria continuing to punish him on the feet. Late in the fourth, Topuria dropped Emmett with a short left hook. Emmett survived and came out throwing to start the fifth, but Topuria weathered the early attacks and went on to win a unanimous decision. The 26-year-old claimed a clean sweep of the scorecards, a 6th straight UFC victory, and a 14th consecutive victory overall. Throughout the fight, Topuria showcased his fantastic striking skills, landing over 150 significant strikes, while also demonstrating dominance in his wrestling, completing all 3 of his takedown attempts. He answered every question there was heading into his first main event, and now stands as an intriguing title challenger to Volkanovski's crown. Saturday, February 17th, 2024, Anaheim, California. UFC 298, Topuria vs. Volkanovski. UFC featherweight champion Alexander Volkanovski had never lost a fight at 145 pounds, a streak that spanned longer than a decade. Ilia Topuria, now 9 years on from his professional debut and unbeaten in his career, had the chance to make history, being the first ever Georgian to become a UFC champion. In the first round, Volkanovski started out by throwing a lot of kicks both high and low, trying to keep Topuria at distance. Ilia continued to stalk and landed a heavy leg kick of his own, which forced Volkanovski to switch stance. Topuria continued the forward pressure, trying to blitz when he could. Round 2 saw more of the same from Topuria as he continuously pressed forward. Volkanovski was moving well, and both men were finding success with their jabs towards the middle of the round. However, 3 minutes and 32 seconds in, Topuria threw a short two-punch combination, followed by a clean right hand that knocked Alexander Volkanovski out cold, making him the new UFC featherweight champion of the world and earning him yet another $50,000 Performance of the Night award. Saturday, October 26, 2025, Abu Dhabi. The newly crowned UFC featherweight champion's first title defense would come against none other than Max Holloway, fresh off his Hall of Fame-worthy knockout of Justin Gaethje at UFC 300, where he captured the UFC BMF title. As the fight began, Topuria immediately pointed to the center of the octagon, making Holloway fully aware that he isn't expecting to meet the same fate as Justin Gaethje. Holloway playfully rejected Topuria's invitation. Topuria immediately began to press forward, trying his best to back Holloway up to the cage, but Holloway used his kicks well to keep Topuria out of his boxing range. Not to be deterred, Topuria continued to hunt Max down, narrowly missing with his lightning-fast shots. As the pace started to pick up, Ilia landed a nice right hand that got Max's attention, but Holloway was still landing shots of his own. Topuria started firing off powerful leg kicks, hoping to slow Max down, which led to Topuria getting off some shots. Topuria continued to fire leg kicks, as you could visibly see Holloway's calf begin to swell. As the round progressed, both fighters continued to throw, Ilia constantly looking for that knockout shot, and Max trying to keep him at range with his jab. The crowd initially thought Topuria had connected with a knockout punch, but Holloway appeared to have slipped. Topuria followed Max to the ground and took Holloway's back, but there wasn't enough time left in the round. Max came out strong at the beginning of round 2, landing big inside the opening minute. Ilia went back to the calf kick, which created more openings. After landing a clean left hook, Topuria started to pressure Max, who was still firing back and had now thrown over 200 strikes in the fight so far, including a nice spinning back kick to Topuria's body, which closed out the round. Both fighters started round 3 with a bit more urgency, but Max continued to keep Topuria at bay with his kicks. Then out of nowhere, Topuria landed a right hand that staggered Holloway. Topuria threw a barrage of shots as Max covered up before circling away. But Ilia could taste blood and caught Max with a left hook that knocked him out cold, becoming the first fighter to ever knock out the BMF champion. Topuria was now 16-0 with 14 finishes and was really beginning to show signs of greatness. In April 2025, the UFC's featherweight champion announced he was moving up to lightweight, in hopes of making history and becoming the first Georgian to become a two-weight world champion. Standing in Topuria's way was none other than lightweight superstar Islam Makhachev. However, on May 13th, Islam announced that he too was moving up a weight division in order to further his legacy by becoming a two-weight world champion. This left the UFC with no choice but to make Ilia Topuria versus Charles Oliveira for the vacant UFC Lightweight World Championship. In Ilia Topuria's last 2 fights, he had knocked out Alexander Volkanovski in spectacular fashion to become the new UFC undisputed featherweight champion. He then destroyed the current UFC BMF champion Max Holloway, whilst defending his featherweight championship for the first time. Next for Topuria was the opportunity to become a two-weight UFC world champion. Standing in his way, Charles Do Bronx Oliveira, a former lightweight champion who had dismantled UFC legends like Michael Chandler, Dustin Poirier, and Justin Gaethje. When round 1 started, Topuria immediately cut Oliveira and then shot for the takedown, working his way to a mounted crucifix before Oliveira escaped and tried to isolate a leg. Topuria scrambled well and made his way to his feet, where he continued to throw bombs as Oliveira looked for the clinch to land some knees. After they separated, Ilia planted his feet and threw a ferocious right hand that put Oliveira to sleep instantly. He had done it, and he had done it in the most incredible fashion. The only real question left is this: could Ilia Topuria be the greatest of all time? Please like and subscribe to really help support the channel. A simple click really goes a long way.